So you recycle, use low-energy bulbs, catch public transport. You're doing lots of things to live greener, but you might be missing the easiest, most important thing, checking you're definitely on a 100% green power electricity plan. Many people think they're on green power when they're actually on a carbon neutral plan, but only green power helps grow wind and solar resources. City of Sydney has compiled a comprehensive online guide to green power plans. Make a powerful difference this year. Visit getgreenpower.sydney. Getgreenpower.sydney.
This is Ben Stiller, Goodwill Ambassador for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. Your help is needed now. Vulnerable people are being forced to flee. They need emergency shelter. They need blankets and basic relief items. Please go online to unrefugees.org.au to give what you can today. Families are scared and need life-saving support. Australians can make a difference. Just go online to unrefugees.org.au.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside of his skin and walk around in it.
Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast.
This is the Rhema Book Club.
Welcome to the Rhema Book Club. I'm Allison, here with Jess and a very special guest, the author of Grit, Grace and Hustle, a faith girl's guide to authentic success, or gal's guide, I should say. It's Rachel Reva. Hello, Rachel.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, ladies. And can I just say to your audience, not only had they invited me, they gave me muffins this morning. So already I am like, when can I come back? This is the best interview by far. You guys win the prize. So thank you so much.
It was selfish, really. It was my breakfast.
Well, it was an extraordinary breakfast. I was happy to be part of it.
And we read your book.
Oh,
we got hints and tips on how to be.
It's a pointer to if you want to be in Rachel's good book. Just give me sugar, basically, at the end. Yes. Thank you.
So, Rachel, we've got a few questions that we've put together for you. You ready to get straight into the interview?
I certainly am. As you guys may or may not know, I do like to talk, so that is not a problem.
All right, so tell us, is the title Grit, Grace and Hustle your motto?
That is, I love that you asked that question because I say, yes, it has been. But can I also just say, it took me 7 years to write this book, from the start of writing it to actually getting it published. And I've noticed the word hustle has been getting a really bad rap lately.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
Yeah, there's a whole anti-hustle movement. And can I just say that, first of all, there are seasons of hustle. So I don't live hustling all the time. We're not meant to. But if you look at the Bible, you look at agricultural terms, which is what a lot of the language is in, and there are seasons to everything. There's seasons to planting, there's seasons to reaping, there's seasons to rest. So is it my motto? Yes, it is. You need grit because you need to be willing to stay in the business, stay in the game, being faithful, which is just showing up. Grace is what I live on every day, y'all. Like, I live on grace.
We all do.
We all do. And grace just means, there are doors to me open that shouldn't be. Grace means when I make a mistake, God will fill those gaps for me. And the hustle is what is required. It does not mean that, especially I want to say this to women, it doesn't mean you have to go, 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 go all the time. But there are certain times, such as when I started building my online business, I was working full time while I was doing that. Was I hustling? Yes. I wasn't getting a huge amount of sleep. I was working really, really hard, but that was required for the foundation of the business. I'm not hustling in the same way now. So I just want to say to anyone, yes, the hustle is required, but it comes in seasons. And I also, I know this now, the people who I've seen who've had experienced success over the long term, they've always had to hustle. And hustle just means you show up consistently for the thing God has called you to do. It's really that simple. It doesn't mean you don't rest. It doesn't mean you don't take care of yourself, but it means you consistently show up for what God has called you to do in that season.
I think, just going to jump in with a different question.
Yes, go for it.
I think the term, like as you just said, hustle is getting a bad rep because it's got a connotation attached to it that's almost, I don't want to say greedy because it's not quite the word I'm after, but it goes along those lines, and it's like that work kind of thing. And it has this, I think because with COVID too, it has this unsavory taste in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people, it's like a dirty word. You're hustling.
Yeah, I think ambition was a dirty word for a long time too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think especially for women to be seen as ambitious has not always been a good thing. And women are meant to be nurturers traditionally, especially in the church sector. Women are meant to be nurturers, the givers, the organizers, the doers in the background. And I guess just on your point, God doesn't call us to be burnt out. So
No.
I do not believe if you are in a season where you're burning out, you rest and you take care of yourself. There's seasons for that too. And it's about understanding what your own capacity is. And when you're tired, being able to say, I need to rest right now, or I'm not called to do this, and to say no. I think no is the most freeing word as women we need to put back in our vocabulary. And ambition is not a dirty word. And I don't believe God, if he gave you, he's given all of us desires. There's a desire in your heart. There was a desire for Jessica to write. There's a desire for Allison to even do this book club. He put that desire in there for a reason. And sometimes I believe that we are constantly saying yes to everyone else and other people's priorities, which means that our own desires and goals that God put inside of us, we say no to by saying yes to everything else. So,
Great point.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the thing that stood out to me about Grace and Hustle was kindness. You've got a lot to say about kindness. Who modeled kindness for you?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. My mother, very simply and easily. Her name is Barbara. She is literally the kindest person I've ever known. But kindness does not mean you say yes to everything. Kindness means boundaries. And I think that's something you see a lot. It's very popular on social media. Kindness wins. Kindness is this. But if you are not kind to yourself first, you cannot, and I say this, you cannot show up the way you're meant to show up. I had a history, and especially when I became a parent, I wanted to do the same things I did, show up the same way before I had a family. I'm going to keep going. That wasn't very kind. It wasn't kind to my family because I was giving them leftovers at some point. So real kindness isn't saying yes and being the nice girl to everyone. Real kindness is, yes, it's being polite. It's being thoughtful. It's being intentional. It's when you're in a room with someone, being in the room with them and not just scrolling on your phone. It's being intentional in that moment. And I do believe, though, and I think as women, we're like, we're meant to be kind. It's not being a pushover and it's not being a people pleaser. Real kindness starts with taking care of yourself, your core people, your family, the people God has called you to. And then going, who else am I meant to serve here? So it's and I have to say, because I grew up in the South, and Jessica was saying she grew up from the Philippines. Is that right?
Well, I'm a small town girl, but my mum is from the Philippines. So.
Well, it's similar. It's similar values, which is actually we recently had a death in our extended family, and one of the things we're like, okay, who's going to show up with meals? Really simple acts. So from that, and people were going, wow, that's so kind. But that's how I was raised, and I don't do it all the time, but it's something like if you see a need and you can meet it, you do it. And we joked before about sugar and brownies. I was raised in a culture where we would bring food. Clearly, we love sugar and food. We would bring food just as a gesture to show that you're human and, hey, I'm here to share something with you. So it's something that has helped me in my career, and I did not even realize this is where the church is so good, can I just say, for parents, especially with young children. I learned to serve in the church, and because of that, it made me really good in my PR career because I learned to serve first. That's what kindness is. It's having a service mindset, but not outside of your own boundaries and not burning yourself out while doing it.
That's great. There might be a little bit of overlap with this next question from what you've just talked about. What does a successful woman look like?
That's such a great question. I say, look in the mirror, okay? That's what it looks like. You look in the mirror, that is what a successful woman looks like. I bought it for years that it had to be in a black outfit, like black power suit, and I love a good power suit. Corner office. That was what my version of success looked like for a while. But you know what? That version changes. So, and I think, we created Life on Her Terms because it's success on your terms. And Maya Angelou has this beautiful quote that says success is loving what you do and loving how you do it.
Oh, great.
And that's actually a challenge. There's a tension there, isn't there? I love communicating, I love encouraging, I love helping, women get visible and all these type of things. But do I love how I'm doing it? Is it burning me out? Am I giving too many, am I giving too much to my family? Are they a priority? So it really, I want to say it comes in seasons. Your version of success will change over time. Allow for that and ask those questions and pray into it. And let me say this, how do you know when that season is over? Frustration enters the building and resentment enters, and we are never meant to live in those. And when they do, and this is the hardest thing for me because I would usually kind of push through, well, you're not meant to feel that way, Rachel. You're meant to give. Frustration has no place in your life or your soul. Resentment is just a flag from your spirit and your body saying something's off here. And it could be from us keeping saying yes to something that we were meant to say no to, or just like, you know what, this season has passed. I'm not meant to be part of this anymore. So to answer your question, what does a successful woman look like? It looks like you, okay? Success for you is however you want to show up in the world and whatever God has called you to. It's success in the way that God has called for you. And it feels, what can I say? It feels like peace and freedom. And that's different for each and every person.
I think our listeners are getting a bit of a session from you today. A free counselling session.
Well, that's what we're here for. Only because I've learned it all myself and still learning. I'm completely imperfect. And I think, hopefully the book shows that. I'm just here to share some of the lessons I've learned along the way, especially working in, in a career of TV and communications where there wasn't a lot of Christianity on display. Doesn't mean there weren't Christians in the... Yeah, right. It wasn't mean they weren't in the workplace, but I didn't see a lot of them.
Yeah.
And but we're meant to be the light in the world, and can I say in the workplace, that's actually where you can shine the most. But I found it really challenging because I kind of say in the book, the women who I saw who were really successful in leadership, it was either one thing or the other. They were really nice pushovers, just said yes to everything, but they didn't have any real influence, but they just waited their way to get to a certain position. Or there was, I call them like aggressive bullies who just bulldozed everyone. And I remember looking at them going, look, I'd like to be in leadership, but I don't want to do it that way.
Yes.
That is not what my version of success looks like. So I didn't see a framework for that. I just kind of was like, God help me. And I started modeling behaviors I did like to see. There are certain people, everyone knows it. You're in a meeting or you're in an audience, you go, I love how that person responded to that question. I love how they mentor them. So I started just observing and copying behaviors down to, I love the emails they sent, and I would just start modeling, these are the people I want to, emulate in a way. And I just started kind of adding that on to who I was already. And it meant I didn't have to, for a while, it's like Rachel from the South, she has this weird accent. Where's she from? Like all that kind of stuff. I stopped hiding that, but I just started taking attributes and behaviors that I thought, this is helpful, this is professional, and this is kind, and this is how I want to show up in the world. And I just kind of took those on.
That's great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's really good.
Well, that's what we all do, really, isn't it? You model your parents to start with.
Yes.
Yes, and then you take bits and pieces of that. But then you become your own person, but you take parts of them with you, but you don't take the whole package anymore.
Well, I love what you just said, because can I say, especially in the church today, it can be really easy to look at, say, certain role models we've had, and it can be devastating when they don't meet us, they don't meet that standard. No one is meant to.
No,
okay,
that's right.
And it's not to give a pass to anyone who has done anything unethical or illegal or ungodly, but it's to say this: the only perfection is in God. Everyone will fall short. And what I have learned is I'm not looking for role models. I'm looking for behaviors and patterns of success that I can copy and take to my own thing, to my own life and career. So I would see a person and go, I love how they handle themselves professionally, but maybe they don't have a perfect marriage, so they're not my marriage mentor. They'll be my career mentor. Don't expect perfection in every part of their life. Don't come to me with your parent questions. I haven't got a clue. I have a 4-year-old, and I am learning all the time. I'm not going to be a parent coach, but I can tell you in this area, this has worked for me. So it's just to give people grace and go, this has worked for them, but I can't expect them to hold perfection in every area of their life.
So our next question kind of bleeds in with all of this. So it's about boundaries, because you do talk about boundaries a lot and the importance of persistent boundaries. So successful women put boundaries in. And, as you just talked about with the, mentors in different areas. So you recognize that person may not be a great marriage mentor, but they'll be a good business mentor, for example. So that's actually a boundary, because oftentimes we think that, that person's really good here, so they're going to be my mentor for everything. And it's a trap we accidentally fall into. So my question actually is, was boundaries modeled to you growing up? And do you find it hard to put boundaries in at work? Especially now that you're out on your own. How do you find boundaries out on your own?
It's such a great question. Was it modeled to me? It was modeled to me in a way that I knew it had to be really important to me. And my mother would be the first person to say this. She did not model it well because she was never shown how to do it.
Yeah.
And so, she started introducing boundaries and started really sharing with us. And this is a hard thing as a parent, going, guys, I wasn't great in this area. Please, be better. And so like, honestly, because, and I do think, and I love the church, we're meant to serve and show up, but you're not meant to serve and show up all the time in every way. And so, am I great at boundaries? I think I'm getting better at it. And I think the biggest boundary I had to introduce was when I became a parent. That actually, I was okay at them before, but I didn't have as much. I had more capacity to expend, I think. But now, yes, I think I've gotten a lot better at it. And for instance, I think the biggest trap I fell into, and maybe someone can relate to this, is when people go, "Can you do this?" I would automatically respond with, "Yeah, of course. Let me get back to you with a time." And now I will pause. And sometimes that pause is, I'm not going to respond to that email straight away or that text straight away. Or I will let a phone number go to voicemail if I do not have the time or capacity in that moment to be present or respond, unless it's unless it's like daycare setting. So I even boundaries around when I answer the phone, I have sometimes, because I might not be in a great space, or I'm intentionally, in a client session, or, creating something for a client. And I just think, no, this isn't the right time for me. I'm not on call 24/7. And so, yes, I think as parents, we have to be better with boundaries, but I think even how we serve, we have to have boundaries around that. And I think one of those things is I'm on a board of a non-for-profit which I absolutely love. And I heard this from someone very successful, actually. He said to me, it was advice he was given. They said to me, "Everyone's going to ask stuff from you. Pick one, say yes to everything, and say no to everything else. So go all in on one issue or one organization or one place, and you just serve there and be there, but say no to everything else." And so just, it's about, God, what are you calling me to in this season? And you say no to everything else. It's about focus, and it's about being unapologetic about saying, "Look, I would love to help you in this way, but I just don't have the capacity at the moment," or, "I'm really focused on my business or my family right now." The amount of times I've had to say that to people, I feel sick about it, by the way. It brings up every people-pleasing tendency I have. It does. I was raised around people pleasers, and it may please everybody else, but you'll be tired, you'll be exhausted, there will be resentment that comes up. And that is when we're not living in the freedom that God has called us to.
Well, that really easily goes into the next question. Segue, I guess. What do you do to relax?
That is so funny.
Do you relax?
Relax. What does that word look like? I mean, that's really a great question. I would love to say, I make sure I have time to relax. I do love reading, and I love writing. Writing I find very relaxing. I don't know if anyone else does, but it's kind of my thing. I say running. I'm getting slowly back into running. Just being outdoors, outside in nature, walking or running with a podcast, I find very, very beneficial to me. That's probably the most relaxing thing I can do at the moment. I do enjoy baking, but my 4-year-old wants to bake with me. I can't say I find that relaxing.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's really not. I love baking.
Yeah.
But I love my children to death.
Yes.
But baking with my 6-year-old, it's one of the most stressful things
It is.
I do. And they seem to just know when you're about to start baking. And they go, "What are you making?" I'm like, I was just going to quickly put in some banana bread really, really, really quick. And you've already found me.
And it's not quick. It's not quick. It's like an hour later and you're just stressed out. I think I think that even that is just like having patience. But in terms of relaxing, I don't get a lot of time to relax. But I think, I think things like that, just getting out the door and being by myself for just a little bit of time is really relaxing.
When you're in the season of young motherhood, because I've like got a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old, so I'm kind of in this space in between. You might have experienced that too, Allison, when your daughter was younger and then you had the younger kids.
Yes.
You have this pull of, I can leave my 12-year-old at home for a couple of hours. Yes. But I'm still going to take my 6-year-old with me. And there's this, but when you're in that season of young motherhood, it's so hard to relax and find that time. And it's so hard it takes a long time to come down. For me particularly, I was always on this like shaky high level of intensity internally. And so it would take such a long time to come down, but so quick to get back up there.
Yes.
And so it's really important to find space as a mum with young kids to relax. Because as with a 12-year-old, I love having a 12-year-old. I love it.
I like the teenage years too.
So far I've got no attitude, which is nice.
It's so encouraging.
But
I can't wait.
it's so nice. Like she goes to she just has a flip phone. She's not impressed I didn't get her a smartphone. It's just a flip phone, and it does it has old school texting.
Oh, I love that.
So she's like, "Mom, what is this?
What is this relic?
But I'm like, you may not like it, but here, you can go to the shops by yourself while I wander around. It's her freedom. But yeah, so, and it's such a nice, like, there's emotional differences that come with it because she's more emotionally needy in some ways to talk about what's happening, blah, blah, blah. But it's just less intense than a young kid. So it's really nice. So find time to relax. Find that time where you can when they're little, because they're full on when they're little.
Yeah, I think that's it's such good advice, and it's really, I would say to mothers, especially 4's not too bad because he has a level of independence and fierceness, which is fantastic. But and I do mean that. But before that, like the baby years are really, really challenging, and I just say to women, you know, what can I do? I'm like, embrace the season you're in. It's really hard.
Yep.
It's really challenging. And I think I don't say that's what I had to do. I thought I could shortcut it somehow, but you really can't. The sleep deprivation, we had a lot of challenges with my son in that way. He's only just started sleeping through, and he's nearly 5. So it's, you know, so I think I just want to say to anyone who is in that newborn land of A, like Jessica said, it does, and Allison, it does get easier. But B, please don't feel like your dreams are on hold. And I thought my dreams were on hold and I had to give them up when I became a mother. You don't. Some go on pause because you really don't have the capacity. Like your capacity that is the most important thing. And be where you are, and it's okay if it's a season of challenge in that way. It will pass, but it's such an important season. I don't want you to dismiss it. If I'm just a mom right now with a young baby, it is so important. And I was really challenged during that time to really trust that God would still honor the desires He gave me while I was tending to a newborn. So yeah,
Great.
All right, we're switching gears just a little. So what would you find great about moving from the US to Australia?
I think that's such a great question. I mean, I came from a really, really small town. I mean, it had 17,000 people in it.
That's not that small.
It's not that, you're right, compared to where you're from. That's right. Let's just say it was a smaller town. It did have a college in it, so maybe not as small as others, and where we knew everybody. It was, you know, a really beautiful community. What did I love about it? Hello, the beaches. I mean, we used to have to travel maybe once or twice a year to a beach in Savannah, and it was like a 7-hour drive. So going from that to living 10 minutes away from the beach, people can't believe it, you know? So that in itself, like I live in a coastal town now, just that is beautiful and incredible. Australians have a beautiful way of living, and it really is like life first, then work. And people in America are shocked by that in terms of, because most people only get 2 weeks of leave a year. It's very, I
can't
think,
imagine that.
And I think I can't either now, but that's the way it's set up. And even like say healthcare, we could get political, but just the way things are set up there's a lot that we've been really blessed with in Australia. And I think just the open to travel, not that Americans aren't, but a lot of them wouldn't have a passport. Most of them traveling isn't as such it's not as much of a, I don't want to say priority, but a lot of people don't have the capacity or resources to do it. Whereas in Australia, it's like a rite of passage, getting that backpack on and going overseas. And I really was blessed to be part of that culture and have my eyes opened in a lot of different ways. So yeah, Australia has been, it's, you know, a home to us. I feel very privileged to be American, but also been adopted by this beautiful country as well. So it's been incredible.
Oh, excellent. So tell me, was culture shock a real big thing, like a real thing?
It was huge. And I think I'm not sure if it would have been as much of a shock if we had social media back then, because all that I had to go on was, you know, you had the internet, we had news, but we didn't have TikTok where I could go on and go.
When did you move out to Australia?
Yeah, I was 14, so I think that was in the year 1999. 1999, so it was a long time ago. There was no social media. There was the internet, and that was it. Like literally, and
there wouldn't have been anything much on the internet.
I couldn't look up a blog on how to deal with, you know, culture shock from moving. What didn't exist? There was no expat. That term didn't even exist. So I wish someone had pulled me aside, even as a teenager, and gone, look, you've been in a bit of a bubble, and that's okay. It's not your fault. Particularly with a lot of the issues that were happening at the time. 9/11 was coming up. There was a lot of, you know, political turns that no one expected, and that some people may think differently about where you come from than you do, and you need to be open to that and not be, and just be okay with hearing that kind of stuff. So I wasn't prepared. While some people are like, you're American, that's amazing. I watched Friends. I got a lot of that. We watched Friends. It was great. So, that was really fun. A lot of people were really open and beautiful. Some people weren't so much. They really, they had very strong opinions about where I came from. After 9/11 happened, I remember I was working in sales in a store, and this gentleman came in and he just started saying all these things, and I'm looking at him going, just because I'm from a different country, all of a sudden I'm meant to be the expert on all these issues. And I'm like, hey, I'm not studying international policy here, I just come from the South. So it was, in terms of the culture shock, I was amazed at how interested and educated people were in America, really educated on history, which was wonderful. And in terms of anything else, I think, I'll be honest, I'd never been around alcohol very much.
Okay.
I came from a real Bible belt. And so it was lovely that Australians, like anyone, were like, oh, you want to, that was an interesting environment I'd never been around before. So yeah, I would say that's probably one of the biggest differences. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Getting back to the book, what is it that inspired you to write this book? You talk a little bit about it in the book.
A little bit about in the book.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I was working as a news publicist at the ABC in Sydney at the time, and nothing crazy was happening in my life. I just I had this really lovely experience by a very seasoned journalist. His name is Paul Berry. He actually hosts Media Watch at the moment, and I was just asked to go and arrange a photo shoot with him, and it was really simple. And I do it all. It's very basic. You do it all the time. But he was so polite and so kind and professional, and wrote me an email to say thank you. And I must have been having a hard time. I don't know what it was. But when I saw that email from him, I could not remember the last time someone had emailed me to say thank you specifically without asking for anything else in return. Usually we'll go, oh, thanks for this, but can you do this? Thanks for this. It was nothing. He was like, thanks for meeting me. Really looking forward to working with you. And I was like, whoa, I'm not even working with this guy? Like, basically, he had no dues to pay. Usually people in a certain level, I don't want to say I don't feel like they have to, but it's unusual. And it got me thinking, because I was so struck by this one act of kindness, and it was nothing but a thank you email. But that thank you email wasn't asking for anything in return. Just note that. And I couldn't believe my own response to it. And it got me thinking, why do we not see this more often? And why am I not experiencing this more often? And perhaps I'm not giving this more often. So that's what started it. And it was this whole idea of, actually, that's very unusual. And yeah, and I just started in my head going, why? And I just started noticing, how often does this happen? How often does this not happen? And then it started making me think about my own career and what people would say to me. And please, if anyone's met me, I'm not the kindest person you'll ever meet. I'm really not. I try, okay? But I'm not perfect. People would say, gosh, Rachel, you're just so kind. And I would think, why are they saying this to me? I'm not doing anything different. I'm not doing anything crazy. But I would smile. I would say hello. I would, make the time. And it was just things I was A, taught by my mother, but B, I was raised in church. So I had a service mindset instilled at me from a very young age. And I realized what I had been looking for was a formula, and I say this in quotation marks, of like, how as a Christian woman am I meant to succeed here? I see men and how they do it, but I'm a woman and I'm a Christian woman. How can I do this and not be a pushover and do it the right way? It was really that simple. And I really couldn't see anything else out there that would show me that way. I read a lot of books from Christian men about how to do it, but men and women are different.
Yeah,
we connect differently.
Yep.
We show up differently. Yep. And can I just say, our intuition is the most powerful thing God has given us as women.
Because we just know when something's off or weird, and you can't explain it.
Yeah, you don't.
And sometimes you think you're crazy.
Sometimes you do. It's true. But let's just say how many times. And there's a book. This is totally this is totally left field, guys. I think it's called The Gift of Fear, and it actually goes through people, mainly women, who've been attacked or horrible things have happened. And nearly every time they've said, I knew there was something, or I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have gone in that elevator, but I didn't want to seem rude. And I didn't want to do this. And I'm telling you, people pleasing will, not only will it really undermine you, but it's a safety thing. The Holy Spirit gives us this intuition for so many reasons. It's, I should call that client, or actually I should step back. That person just doesn't feel right to me. I'm going to go the other way. That is the most powerful thing we have as women. And in a career and business, it is a superpower. And it's something we constantly dismiss because we think we don't have stats to back it up. But your intuition is your superpower. And I'm saying that because not a lot of books will address from a female perspective, the gifts that we have and how to amplify them in the workplace or in business. And I think that's why this is hopefully quite important.
Great.
I think I'm going off topic in terms of questions too. I think, though, that especially in a work environment, women's qualities are not valued. Our value, the way we communicate, our emotions, because men, it's a man-focused world. Let's just admit it. Look, I love men. Don't get me wrong. But that world is very male-focused, and how they communicate. So women's ways of emoting and talking and understanding and communicating are not valued and not understood, and they're often dismissed. And I think it's about, you're right, learning how to be successful as a woman with your godly gifts that God has given women, and learning, and there isn't much out there on that issue.
Yeah, and I think, and I absolutely agree, just in terms of men built the workplace, so of course they would understand innately how to operate in it. It would be like you and me going into our kitchen and be like, well, I know where everything is. Whereas you ask, sorry, I'm totally generalizing here. You ask your husband to do it, and my husband does most of the cooking. He's like, I don't know where anything else. It's the same thing. They built the workplace, so they don't need these lessons mostly. Whereas what I've learned is, and this is where it came to, and this is me, just how my type A brain works, of I would see a certain person, usually a man, and go, I love how they communicate, and I love how people listen to them. Why is that? Usually they say less. Usually they have an opinion and don't ask if they can have an opinion. Can I just say, they don't do that. They say, why don't we publish this tomorrow? They don't say, oh, do you mind if I ask a question? They don't say that. They just ask the question. So they don't ask for permission to be seen or heard or valued, first of all. And secondly, they do have I don't want to say they have a much more professional kind of way about them. I think women, I think women's superpower in the workplace is from connection. So what that means is, if you've had, and this is what I've learned, when you go into a meeting, the decisions have usually already been made. This is going a little bit more high level. So it's up to you. Don't think the meeting is the meeting. The meeting is just to tick a box. So if there's something you need to be addressed or done, have the conversation before the meeting. Connect with that person on a human level, and then go in, and it's not a shock what happens, and then you can deal, and you can keep your emotions in check that way. I've been through meetings where I've been completely ran over and gone, how did that happen? Well, I did not honor the rules of the place I was in, or the culture I was in. You've got to understand the culture that you're in so that you can operate effectively in it.
You mentioned in your book, you find those rules out by finding someone who's been there, who can share the rules of that particular environment with you. So maybe because I'm a stalker, I don't know. No, I'm an observer of nature. You can see it pretty straight away, I'd say, within your first, couple weeks of being somewhere. Who knows all the information? They may not be the person in the leadership position either. Who knows all the information? Who's been there the longest? Who is a little bit kind, maybe a little bit open? And who do you think I could glean from them? I could learn something from them. So it's really about asking, and most people, we like to talk about ourselves. And so if you just say, will you mentor me? But look, I would love to hear more about this, about what you do. Would you mind joining me for 10 minutes just to have a coffee? That's it. That's all you need to add, because 10 minutes is fine. 10 minutes most people can handle. I was interested in producing when I was working in publicity, so I just asked one of the producers out for coffee and was like, tell me more about what you do. That's all I would start with, and I would learn a lot. So I wouldn't go, tell me about the culture. That's an HR question that you're never going to get the right answer for, what you need to know. Never ask about the culture. Ask about, what have been your biggest challenges? How can I support you? That's a good one. Is there anything, how can I, what can I do to make the biggest impact here? Just start getting to know people, and that's how you start learning the culture. And obviously by observing, do people bring in coffees? And when I was working in the UK, I love the British culture, but they would always go, it's time to, would you like to have a tea? And I was like, my gosh, they drink a lot of tea here. And I couldn't stand it, to be honest. I don't really drink much tea. Do you like tea? Not really. I like sweet tea. I like sweet tea, not British tea. But I don't want to talk about it. People think I'm, criticizing the Boston Tea Party. I don't want to get into it. But the point is, what I recognized, though, was why me going, guys, I'm doing the work here. I was missing out on everything. I was missing out on the culture, that's when the real conversations happened. Maybe it was the smoke break for people 20 years ago, but for them, it was go and sit and have tea together, and that's when the conversations happen. And that's what I mean by the culture. So, where do the real conversations happen? Where do people connect as humans outside of
that, because sometimes we think I'm just going to go in and do my job and everyone will just see that I'm doing my job and that's enough. It's not enough. It's not. Usually the ones who get promoted are not the ones who are best at their job. They're best at connecting. So I think that's one of the things that I've kind of learned. And brownies clearly help.
It's really interesting.
All right. Let's jump to a different question. So when you wrote this book, is there any particular authors or other books that influence you? Because as you said, there wasn't too many books like this out there. So you're kind of paving your own path in that respect.
Yep.
So is there any other authors or anything else that came before you that was like, you know what, I can fit into this new mold?
No, that's such a great question. A couple, I would think, years ago, Dr. Phil McGraw
love him.
He's so good. I mean, I grew up on Dr. Phil and those segments. I think that's what got me interested in personal development, as well as, like, the Bible is the original personal development, but it's just, I love both because I can see it gives tangible outlets to what is already in the Bible and all the wisdom, especially in Proverbs. But he wrote a book called Life Code, and that really helped me when I was in the throes of the career building stage in life. And he really can call out certain personalities that you have to deal with in the workplace. So I think number one is that book. There was also a book I was recommended, I can't remember her name, but it was Think Like a Man, Act Like a Lady.
Oh,
and
I've heard of that book.
Yeah,
I don't know who wrote it, but I've heard of it.
Tina, I can't remember her name, but that was one of the first books, and that really helped me. She started, I think, working at CBS and then ended up being like the head of talent there or something like that. So she understood, and she talked about, as a woman, the superpowers that we have, essentially. So I really loved that book. And I think those are the first two. And actually, Steve Harvey, who is very American, believe it or not, he actually talks a lot about relationships, but he talks about kind of career stuff too. And he actually did a similar book. I think it was called Think Like a Man, Act Like a Lady. It was very similar. It was more about relationships. But all of that, how you show up in one thing is how you show up in everything. But those are some of the books. And Reese Witherspoon wrote that beautiful, it was almost like a Southern housekeeping book, but I just loved it. I loved the language of it. I can't remember what it was called. Whiskey in a Teacup.
Yes.
Whiskey in a Teacup.
Yeah.
And I think because I'm from the South, I really resonated with that. But I mean, gosh, and also from a Christian perspective, there's a book by John Ortberg called If You Want to Walk on Water,
I love that book.
You Have to Get Out of a Boat.
We should review that book. That's a great book.
It's amazing.
It's a great book.
It's on our list.
Yeah, I keep going back to it. And I did a month. I did a month training around that, especially in business, because it's very much around the tangibles of that. And so, those are some of the books that have helped me along the way. As well as the Bible. Proverbs is my go-to for life hacks. Just saying, I'm like, I need some wisdom. Proverbs, of course.
What's your writing process look like?
Such a good question. It has changed so much since I became a mother.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
I mean, I literally wrote, I remember, this is such a, you know how you have those beautiful moments. I remember when I finished my book, I finished writing it, and it was Christmas Eve. I was in a coffee shop in London, so it was all very magical. I was like, oh, I've just finished.
That's
book.
like the perfect
amazing.
setting.
It was snowing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. God's opening up the heavens. It was, but it didn't get published for like 5 years, right? It just sat on this imaginary bookshelf. But I used to be able to go and do 2 or 3 hours, of writing and stuff at the time. Now it's different. Now it's in the car, and I have voice notes. And if I'm inspired, and I do this for my Coffee and Faith segment as well, or any other content I'm creating for, I will just sit and record myself talking. So that sounds but that's pretty much it at the moment of how it starts. Once I know the thought, I could zip it out in not very long. So that's my writing process starts with voice notes, with that kind of inspiration. And then I will book out, and it may be 2 hours a month to do proper writing. But mostly it's in 30-minute segments, if I'm honest, of just time I can grab here and there. So
you sound like every mother who's trying to write. One of my key times is the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't actually do write, but I do emails, or I'm in discussion with, because it's a good time to be communicating in the US. At 8 o'clock our time in the morning. So I'm there, and my kids are like, Mom, we're running late. Oh, hang on, I'm just finishing a conversation. You just got to grab those.
You do. It's
times.
about grabbing it. I know Stephen King says you have to write for 40 minutes a day or something like that. He has this beautiful formal ritual. But again, as women, we have different responsibilities. Yeah. Very rarely can we show up and even if I wake up early, I usually up at 6, I might have 10 minutes to write. It still isn't for me enough time to have that block time. So I just say, I think, give yourself freedom. And if the flow isn't there, the flow isn't there. I don't believe in trying to force it. I really don't, because nothing comes up. I think being inspired is more important than trying to write. So if I'm not feeling inspired, that's why going outside and being in nature or going to see a movie, like little things like that keep me will like inspire me to actually start writing versus I have to write now. It just, if I make it like that, I won't do it. It won't be good.
Well, I will say, I'm going to contradict you just a little bit. I will say that when you're writing fiction books, you kind of got to show up every day.
Yeah.
And you just got to put your butt in the chair and write, even if you don't like it. Because you can fix it later. Because you'll like it later.
I think the discipline is super important. I really do. I mean, I haven't written a book since I became a mother. So that you would be able to talk more to that than I would. I had a book that had been written and I didn't really, so the process of actually getting the book published happened after I had a child. So I can't actually speak much to that, and you would, about the discipline required to show it when you're actually writing another book. I wouldn't know yet.
I mean, when you have young kids at home before school, oh no, it was just fine here and there. I wrote a book. My daughter would sleep for 2 hours every day. I wrote a book. I wrote a 90,000 word book in like 6 months, which is a pretty big miracle. But then when they went to school, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like a routine now.
It's amazing.
It's nice. Routine's
I can't
nice.
imagine. Maybe next year. I don't know.
Well, if you've just tuned in, we're talking with Rachel Reva, who's the author of Grit, Grace and Hustle, and I'm Allison Ludriks, here with Jessica Wakefield.
Hello.
We're just going to take a quick break and then come back with some Mother's Day questions. How's that, girls?
That sounds great.
Sounds awesome.
See you soon.
This is the Rhema Book Club.
Hey, welcome back to the Rhema Book Club with Allison and Jess. We're here with Rachel Reva today. We've just been talking about her book, Grit, Grace and Hustle. And we're going to have a really quick chat about Mother's Day, because it is Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day, ladies.
We haven't forgotten. We were just busy gas bagging with Rachel.
Take some time.
So, quick questions for all of us to answer. Favourite fictional mother and why? Rachel, go.
I would say it would be Laura from the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is a show from the 1960s.
A show still counts.
It still counts, yeah. She was my favorite, one of my first female icons I saw on TV. She was actually the first woman to wear capri pants as a housewife, which was apparently a big deal and scandalous at the time. But she was funny and smart and intelligent and wasn't just a housewife. I absolutely love her.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about you, Allison?
From fiction, I'd say the mother in the Hawk and Dove series by Penelope Wilcox. So we actually did...
You reviewed that.
Yeah, we reviewed her book earlier.
I didn't, but you and Jen
before,
did.
before you came along. And I love her because she teaches her children the Bible. She feeds them delicious food. She goes on walks with them. And she's just very relatable, and like... I feel like you could emulate what she does quite easily.
That's nice. It's not one of those high pressure, I must be like this type of mother.
Yeah. So
that's nice.
Just a really beautiful story with her teaching her kids and loving her kids. And
that's lovely.
Yeah. It's very gentle.
That's
not
nice.
Mrs. Bennett, which was
the highly strong mother.
Which is the first one that popped into my head for some reason.
She was.
She's highly strong. Well, mine was Marilla Cuthbert, because she's gruff, but she's lovable, and you can't resist Anne. And you can't resist Anne Shirley, Anne with an E, and, Anne worries, at some point that she wished Marilla had gotten a boy like that originally planned, and Marilla's like, I wouldn't trade you for a dozen boys. And I love that, and that this grumpy woman just absolutely adores Anne, even if she struggles to hug her.
Yeah, I loved Marilla because she wasn't she wasn't the biological mother, and it was a very unusual circumstances of her becoming the parent, and yet she had such a mother's heart towards her. Yeah. But it was a firm, tough love, and I think that's not
Anne
what
needed that.
Yes, she did, and Matthew gave that beautiful, nurturing kind of sense.
Yes.
And I just think that's a lot of mothers. That's a lot of women who have stepped up to the plate, and we don't always see that, do we? So
that's right.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, I think go straight to our next question of what makes, I hate the word good mother, but we just literally talked about stepping up to the plate, whether you're a stepmother, a bio mum, it's like a whole new term.
Right. It's so weird.
But what makes a good mum, and even in the book you just suggested there, Allison, about showing up, going for walks, reading the Bible with your kids, cooking good food. I think for kids, what makes a good mum is a mum who's there.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one who's actually paying attention to them
Yes.
while they're there as well.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, someone who's engaged.
Yes,
Yeah.
engaged, yeah. But
Yeah.
that, you can be a working mum and engaged. You can be a stay-at-home mum and engaged with your kids.
Yes.
I mean, plenty of times I'm like, I'm on my phone, just go away.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like the 20th minute of them talking about some
Oh,
game
yes.
they've been playing and
I
you're
know.
like blurry eyes. I'm not sure if I can keep talking.
I think no, I completely agree with you. I think it's the intentionality, and I think I'm very fortunate. I think the mother village is hugely important too. I think my son's life is so much richer because of the other women in his life too, like the aunts and the grandmothers and the friends
Yes.
who step in. And yeah, I think 10 minutes of intention is just as effective as 3 hours of being around and not really paying attention to your
Yeah.
kid. And I think one of the most freeing things I heard was a woman who raised these 4 incredible children. And she just said to me, Rachel, I know I could have been just as good of a mother, even if I was working full time and doing this and that. Basically, there are 1,000 ways to be a good mother. And I
Yes.
think one of the worst things about social media is that there's these little... not communities, but almost
Factions?
factions of I'm this type of a mother and I'm that type of a mother, and I'm like, I'm the mother that my child needs.
Yes.
And that's it. And I'm not the mother I thought I would be. I'm just going to say that straight away. I'm really not. But I do know and believe, and this is what I say on my hard days, and we've all had some hard days. I'm the child my mother needs. Otherwise, God wouldn't have given it to me, or I wouldn't be in this situation. Like, that's it. You are a good mother because you are what God decided. You are the mother for this child, and that's all you need to know. And sometimes that looks like spending lots and lots of time with them. Sometimes it looks like I got to drop you off because I don't have time to do what I need to do. But God gives you grace for when we're not good in those moments, or when
Yes.
so I live in that grace every day. I need it. So yeah, that's what I think.
Well,
All right.
that's about it with our discussion.
Time with you this morning, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Especially on Mother's Day.
It's so beautiful to connect with other women who are mothers as well, and also just sharing different perspectives. And I love what you ladies do. It's so beautiful having this time and hearing about different stories and what they bring up in each and every one of us. So I just want to say thank you so much, and to the women listening, like, God's got an amazing plan for you, and even if a season that you're in doesn't feel easy or fun or fruitful, I promise you there's a reason for it. So I just want to say stick with it, and God's got your back.
I'm sure the listeners have really enjoyed that time.
You got yourself a motivational session there, Allison?
Yeah, I feel very motivated.
I expect to see things from you.
I expect some more kindness.
Allison's very kind.
Oh, thank you. Let's talk about what we've been reading ourselves. What have you been up to?
I haven't read heaps, but I did read a Jenny B. Jones book. So there's a movie that was out a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, called Finding Me. I really can't remember. It's based on a book by Jenny B. Jones called There You'll Find Me. Maybe just Finding Me. Anyway, it's set in Ireland. It's a really cute movie. I've never read the book because it's YA, young adult, and I don't tend to read a lot of YA. But I really like Jenny B. Jones. She's really funny. So I started it, but I hadn't gotten too far into it. And then we went away to Gunnedah a couple of weekends ago for the Gunnedah show. And I don't go on rides. I don't like rides. I don't do fast rides. I didn't have my husband with me, and I have my 6-year-old with me, and she's a little thrill seeker. And so what happened was I decided to go on a fast ride with her, and I'm like, no, I've got to give her this moment, I've got to do it for her. And I thought this particular ride, it looked okay. So I have anxiety, and we're learning to deal with it. It's all good. It's fairly under control. It's all right. But I got on this ride with my eldest niece and my 6-year-old. Excuse me. And then they locked me into the ride. And the minute the bar went over me, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't get out. Oh my gosh, I'm stuck. Oh my gosh. And then the ride starts. So I'm busy trying not to have a full-blown panic attack. This is related to the book, I promise. Full-blown panic attack. I didn't have one. I could hear my sister from the sidelines going, just breathe. And my eldest niece is like, Auntie, I was asking all these questions, and then I'm like, is my 6-year-old Anna, is she okay? And she's like, she's totally fine. She loves it. I could hear Anna, woo! And I'm just like, I want off. Got off the ride. I was like unsteady walking off the ride. And I just walked up to my sister and said, I've spent a year in therapy learning to not feel this way. And I can kind of laugh about it now, but I did not feel okay. I felt so unsettled. I felt like running, screaming from the show. It didn't help that it was cold and raining and I hadn't dressed for the cold and my butt was wet from sitting in wet rides with my 6-year-old. And I was hungry and all the food available at the show is not healthy by any means. I'm eating donuts. Really nice donut though, by the way. And so I drove home the next day. I'm like, I just need to get home. I just need to get home. I just need to get home. I need to be where I'm comfortable. And then Monday rolled around, kids are at school, and I'm still really quite shaken. Like, okay, my husband was like, just do something quiet. So I picked up the Jenny B. Jones book I'd started, and I just snuggled into the blankets. It was a cold day, and I just read, and I laughed out loud because Jenny B. Jones is really funny. And there was like, I just kept laughing and laughing. It was like the perfect antidote to what was for me a really anxiety-driven weekend. And I was managing all the 4-hour drive by myself as well, having to stop for naps because I was so tired. So just sitting down and reading this, great it's rom-com, romantic comedy. It's so funny. And, grandma, the character's grandmother's like an ex-CIA agent, and so she's just like this old granny who's like comes out with all those highly inappropriate statements about, I can put his body somewhere if he mistreats you. I know how to hide him when no one can find him. But think of it as like Georgia in like, that southern kind of accent too. Like, so it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. So that's, I think that's when books become the thing you need. Like, I love reading, but sometimes you just need that perfect book to pull you back out of that horrible place I was in.
Oh, well,
so I highly recommend. It's called Sweet Right Here, by the way. I hadn't mentioned the title. Sweet Right Here by Jenny B. Jones.
Oh, well, maybe you'd like to get yourself a copy of that.
Yeah.
If you haven't.
Grab a copy if you want a good laugh.
Yeah.
And you like romance. Okay, romance.
We've been reading a lot of romance this year.
Sorry, I am trying to branch us out.
I've been enjoying it though, to be honest.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Personally, I haven't really read very much. I just started reading a book by Bill Bright. He's the Campus Crusades for Christ.
I thought that name was familiar. I was like, I know that name.
And this is a book he wrote when he found out he was dying.
Oh.
So it's The Journey Home, Finishing with Joy.
Oh, wow.
So there was a reason why I wanted to read this. I had a client who passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I went, it was pretty sad. I went to his funeral and listened to his the eulogy at his funeral, and I thought maybe I should read something about finishing well and about what I can do personally to make sure I'm I leave a legacy that's positive and does good in the world. So I thought this book could be good, but it's been a bit hard to get into, to be honest. It's a bit sad.
You could say that the guy's dying, so I mean, finishing well, but still dying is sad.
But he's got such a great attitude. Yeah. So when it's finishing with joy, he really truly is finishing with joy.
Is he still alive?
No, he's not.
Okay, so how old is that book?
I'll have a look. It's pretty old, I think.
It looks like it's maybe 15 years old.
Yeah, it's got that look about it, isn't it? 2003.
Oh, yeah,
so,
it wasn't too far off.
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah, so it's got that 20-year-old look, hasn't it?
Yes, it does. It does.
The style of the cover and everything, yeah.
But you're right, it is important to finish well. And we don't think about that while we're busy going through life.
Yeah, unless something comes up.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to read that book. I thought I was after that.
Maybe just read some chapters here and there, and maybe not the whole thing. Did you read the whole thing?
No, I've just started it.
So maybe just read what you can and glean what you can, and you can come back to it
when I'm 80, hopefully.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with the book for next month.
Okay, see you soon.
This is the Rhema Book Club.
You're listening to the Rhema Book Club here on 99.7. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers
happy
listening.
Mother's Day, everyone.
Well, why don't we talk about what we've got coming up next month?
Well, next month is our fiction month. As you know, we switch from fiction to non-fiction every other month. So we're doing fiction in June because it's May. It's Mother's Day, and I just had a momentary, what month are we in? So the book we picked was called When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. And I was drawn to this book because of the cover. I can't explain to you the cover. I'll stick it on our Facebook group. It's just a really intriguing cover, and I'd seen the book around. It's a fairly new release, maybe about a year old. I'd seen it around a lot on my social medias, and I was like, oh, it looks really interesting. And then I finally just read the blurb, and the bit that got me, and I'll read this tiny bit to you all, is when she falls asleep in one life, she wakes up in another. So I was like, whoa, what? I want to know what this is. And it's about a girl who basically lives one life in 1774, colonial Williamsburg, and the other one in 1914, Gilded Age, New York. And towards the end of the blurb, it indicates that she can't stay in both worlds. She has to pick one. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to know which world she's going to pick.
Yes.
I had to find out, and I'm going to read it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be getting into it. I've had it for a couple of weeks, and I've wanted to pick it up and read it, but I've held off because it looks quite fascinating. It's a beautiful looking book, actually.
It is. I've not seen this concept done before.
No, it's a very fresh new concept.
I mean, it's time travel,
yes,
but it's just not done this way.
No,
and I'm really keen to read it. She's got another book out that does 3 time zones, 3 time slips, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know how. I have no idea how I'm going to manage it. Maybe we'll read that one. We'll see.
Sounds good. So When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. If you'd like to read along with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can also join us on our Facebook page, which is the Rhema Book Club. Just search for the Rhema Book Club and you'll find us. And I'd love to have your company. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Mother's Day edition of the Book Club. Jess, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I can't think of anything. We had a full show today.
Yeah, very full show.
Lots of fun, lots of great conversations.
Yeah.
Lots of laughs. Always good.
Yeah, hopefully next month's just as good.
I'm sure it will be.
All right, well, bye.
Bye everyone.
The Rhema Book Club.
Right now with Bupa, get up to 10 weeks free when you join on eligible products. Plus, 300 everyday rewards dollars. T's and C's apply. But hurry, offer ends June 30, so search Bupa 10 weeks free today.
Make a statement with Alto Volkswagen North Shore. Great deals available across the range, including the T-Cross Life from just $32,990 drive away. Or add some style to your daily drive with T-Rock and a 5.99% comparison rate. With vehicles available for immediate delivery, drive away in your new Volkswagen today. For approved applicants only. Ends March 31 while stocks last. Conditions and fees apply. See website for details. MD71.